All right, guys, today we're going to talk about the rise and fall of Napoleon. We're going to talk about the fact that he was able to forge an empire out of the revolution of France. And we can get into his rise and fall because it's pretty much uh, a symbolic story of a lot of people throughout history, be it like Alexander or Julius Caesar or people like that, maybe even Hitler, folks like that, being able to come to power in times of trouble, uh, bringing peace in some ways, but then being the instruments of their own downfall. So the first thing you need to know is that he is able to seize power because the calamity of the French Revolution going on presents an opportunity for him to show up and be the man of the hour, a hero in some sort of way. And the way he does this is he's actually already been in the army, and he is kind of like in charge of an artillery group, and uses that to defend the national convention against a group of royalists, people that wanted to bring the monarchy back. And when he does this, he becomes like a hero to revolutionary uh, France, and then that is his first step in moving up in the world, so to speak. Um, then later on, he gets together with some other military officers and stages what's known as a coup d'état. Now, this is another word given to us by the French, which technically translates in a blow to the state. What it really is it's a military takeover of the government of a nation. And he takes it over, then gets rid of the other people, and basically becomes the man himself when it's time. So here he is, Napoleon, ruling France. And one of the things that he really wants to do is to make sure that they keep the positives from the revolutionary time in France, some of the reforms that they had put into place, but he also wants to add in some of the things that he feels like maybe even from a military point of view or things like that, which might help sustain his rule. So some of the things from the revolution, efficient tax collecting system. They put in a national banking system, get rid of corrupt officials. They also set up schools and things like that, government run public schools and those sorts of things. And then he brings in a uniform set of laws for everybody, and basically uses that to eliminate injustice in a lot of ways as well. He actually crowns himself emperor by having the Pope show up. And this is one of those things where when the Pope shows up for the ceremony, and it's all the pageantry and the robes and the candles inside of the cathedral and everything. And when the Pope goes to put the crown on his head, he takes the crown himself and places it on his own head. And what he's saying there is he's more powerful than the church. The woes of the French economy, however, are not cured by the French Revolution. If anything, they're made worse. And him coming to power, the reset of the tax code still isn't enough to pour money into the coffers. So what he does, if you look down in the lower left-hand corner here, is he actually sells the French holdings in what's going to become the United States of America. This is our Louisiana Purchase in 1803, and we add a ton of territory to our land. And he gains a bunch of money that he uses for his war efforts. And his war efforts are him fighting on continental Europe. Here you see a map of the French Empire around 1812. He's going to go about conquering Europe by once again starting small wars and then growing them into even larger wars. One of the first things is he takes this area up here that used to be part of the Netherlands. Then he takes over part of France that you see down here in the darker blue right here. And then he basically forces pretty much everybody to sign peace treaties except for the British. The British don't give up. And what he tries to do is he tries to get them to submit. But in the Battle of Trafalgar, the British Navy defeats the French Navy. And what this does is it pretty much sets the sets the British Navy up to be the strongest Navy in the world for almost like 100 years. And that leads to all sorts of expansions of the British Empire. But this is the French Empire that you see. He has controlled his own country, but he signed treaties with everybody but the British pretty much. The Portuguese are still kind of sided. If you look at them down here, they're still kind of sided with the British as well. But he is controlling a large part of mainland Europe, and that's going to be telling later on. Now, Napoleon starts to make a series of mistakes that are going to lead to his downfall. And the first one is the thing called the continental system. If you look back at that map that we were talking about earlier, he basically tries to set up a blockade system where the British cannot trade with anybody on continental Europe. It doesn't work well because the British Navy is too strong. The Battle of Trafalgar proves that, and the British are still able to trade with mainland Europe, even though he's trying to stop that. One of the next things he does is what's called the Peninsular War, and this is the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. He actually tries to put a member of his own family on the throne of Spain, and then sends an invasion force towards Portugal through Spain. Well, this upsets the Spanish people. Obviously, it upsets the Portuguese. And this Peninsular War is yet another cost to him in troops and money, but nothing quite like what you see at the bottom, which is his invasion of Russia. Now, Tsar Alexander I from Russia and Napoleon used to be friends, but the friendship dissolves and Napoleon decides that he is going to make a move on Russia. He invades Russia, and the Russians do to him what they are eventually going to do to the Nazis and Germans in World War II. They burn their own stuff. They go with a retreat and destroy, scorched earth policy, where they burn all their own grain supplies. They slaughter all their own animals and get rid of them. And an army, as the old saying goes, marches on its stomach. And the French simply don't have enough to eat. And it is a defeat. Even though he didn't lose a single battle, it is a defeat because he is not able to go and do the things that he wants to do. Alexander is willing to destroy Moscow to keep Napoleon from taking it over. And when you're dealing with somebody that's that willing to take matters that far, it's kind of hard to defeat them. So Napoleon's downfall comes in a couple different ways. One of the things that he does is he starts another war with some of the other continental European powers. And this time Prussia, which is the forerunner of Germany, and the Russians get together, get their troops all the way into Paris, and they are actually able to defeat Napoleon. He's forced to give up the throne, and he is exiled to Elba, which is an island. I'll move this out of the way. This is Italy, obviously here. France is right over here. Elba is right here off the coast of Italy. Well, he's there. He's locked up. He's not going to be a problem for anybody anymore, except Louis XVI's brother comes to the throne. He is very unpopular. There are still people who are longing for the days of the Napoleonic France. And all of a sudden, he escapes from Elba, comes back, and they call it the 100 Days. And what he does is he brings back some of his loyalists, tries to march on Paris, and he ends up getting defeated. And then he gets sent to St. Helena, which is an island off the coast of Africa, between Africa and South America in the middle of nowhere. The reason I put the Count of Monte Cristo on here is if you ever get a chance to read it because Dumas' probably the most famous story kind of starts. The reason that the Count of Monte Cristo, the guy gets arrested, is because he's accused of helping Napoleon escape from Elba. So that's a pretty good thing. I want to bring back up that de Tocqueville quote again. He was as great as a man can be without virtue. He was a great leader. He was an effective leader, but kindness wasn't necessarily what he was searching for, and domination was. and that's probably why he didn't work out very well in the end. Well, that's all we've got time for today.